For eons you waited. The story of the alchemist left you intrigued. And now, you are alone and wondering. That couldn't be all of it. Could it?
Well, really, it's been 6 months, but it sure feels like forever. What's going on, guys? This is Kane Rafal, and we're continuing on the story of my brother's awful DM NPCs. While watching the previous video isn't a requirement, I will be making references to it as I go along, so it may be in your best interest to check it out. Here, I'll wait. All good? Okay, let's continue. It would be a long time before I came back to the table to play Pathfinder with my brother again. By that point, I've been playing for years, with another friend that I had made who had taught me a lot about not only being a good DM, but also creating an interesting world to explore. I learned a lot about the game system by this point and was looking forward to a new campaign, since my friend was taking a break from DMing. This campaign saw the return of Carl, but reverted back to level 1 for the sake of the campaign. But knowing what I had learned from my brother's last campaign, I decided to pick up blacksmithing early. It was pretty early when I was introduced to my brother's new character for the campaign, a returning character at that, being Redtail. Although this wolf was different from the one I had played with previously. For one, he was no longer a half-orc, and instead a full human with wolf-like traits, such as having a long black tail with red tip. I can understand changing a character for the sake of having them be like how you wanted them to be. My very first version of Carl was actually a gargoyle, which ended up becoming a Reluke by the time my brother's campaign started. Then the bombshell hit. My brother decided to tell us just about everything there was to know about Wolf as a means of describing him. He described him as a 7-foot tall man with muscles on top of muscles on top of muscles. Like, take the world's biggest bodybuilder and make him bigger, because that's just how strong he is. If it wasn't apparent, this was obviously my brother's stand-in for himself, or at least how he viewed himself. To me, it didn't make a difference. You can make your character look however you want, but it's the stats that determine whether or not he's actually strong. And that's whenever he told us his stats, because why wouldn't he? He had to flex his massive character on us in some way. First thing he mentioned was Wolf's strength, which was a staggering 1,105, way higher than the normal maximum of 20. His other stats would follow suit. Dexterity was 1,083, intelligence was 1,028, wisdom was 1,030, constitution was 1,060, and his charisma was 1,049. His base health was also 2,283, and he had an AC of 546. So, pretty much he was an untouchable god. But he didn't want to admit it. He said it was because his character was level 98, something that he mentioned to us over and over and over, as if it meant that there was more that he could do. He also continued to stress to us that this was in fact his same and original character that he had played when he first started D&D. Considering that I played with this very first character, I knew things didn't add up. Remember in my previous video how I mentioned that our DM, while not a stickler for the rules, stuck to the book for the most part, especially when it came to character progression, meaning that at most, Wolf would be level 20 with a maximum of 30 strength, but he touts that this was completely legit. Yeah, sure buddy, and my dad works at Nintendo and he will ban your Minecraft account. Lucky for us though, Wolf wasn't brought into the campaign to follow us around like Zav in the previous campaign. Instead, he would interact with us from time to time in different ways. Our first encounter involved us having to fight him, where he purposely lowered his strength, which I guess is something he could do, in order to fight us at level 1. Even at 10% of his power, he still made insanely easy work of all of us. So much so that you could take a guess at what happened. He effectively killed us. But oh wait, that wasn't all. As we lay there bleeding out, someone comes and saves the day. Who else than everyone's least favorite alchemist Zav, jacked up on his signature Mr. Hyde potion. He revives us and leaves shortly after. Revived and annoyed by the encounter, I push on hoping that we don't need to encounter any of these characters again for the remainder of the campaign. Oh, how naive I was. In the next town, we see Wolf again at the tavern. As he laughs about our previous encounter, he claims that he doesn't want to hurt any of us. He just wanted to test us. The next time we encountered him was involving us fighting a dragon. He came to assist us as the town said we couldn't possibly handle the problem alone. He came along with us and told us stories about his past and how he really hates dragons. When we find the dragon, we are introduced to two new things about Wolf. First is that he really hated dragons. In fact, he loathed them so hard that he would instantly trigger his rage. As a barbarian, this should be a rather simple ability, but of course, with all things Wolf, it was anything but. You see, Wolf had 5 levels of rage. Each level of rage had various effects, and they would stack up on top of one another. On the surface level, this would be fine. In fact, in a way, I think homebrewing this kind of idea will make a barbarian a bit more than just a one-trick pony. However, because everything about Wolf is busted, it was anything but good. Rage 1 doubles all of his stats. It makes his already absurd stats even more ridiculous. His health doubles as well. Rage 2 doubles all of his skills, which, I mean, I guess that's nice, but have you ever known a barbarian to use their rage to enhance a stealth check or something? Seems like a pointless addition, but whatever. His health doubles in the state as well. Rage 3. His primal instincts kick in, which he never really elaborated on. All of his stats and skills had already doubled. I don't see what other buff he could apply that doesn't make him even more busted. But again, it continues. His AC doubles in this state as well. Rage 4. He becomes even harder to calm down, which like the previous boost, wasn't really elaborated on. Does it give him a disadvantage on ending his rage? Does it give him an advantage on keeping it? Who knows? His stats double again in this state. Rage 5. Everyone becomes an enemy to Wolf. Friends, foes, farmers, it doesn't matter. Wolf slaughters everyone. He becomes completely blinded by rage. His stats and AC double again, and the only way for him to lose Rage 5 is to get knocked out or put to sleep. When he fights a dragon, he instantly goes into Rage level 5, which isn't good for anyone involved. We didn't have the means to deal with him when he was using only 10% of his strength, let alone with him in a rage and having bloated values. And that's when he reveals the second new thing he added. Remember in the previous video, Wolf had a sword made from the spine of a red dragon, similar to a flame tongue and how it performed in battle. Wolf's spine blade became something entirely different here. For one, it was now his spine that the sword was made from, and he would literally rip it out of his back when he began battle. On top of this, the damage on the sword had some crazy dice rolls to calculate it. I kid you not when I say the damage formula on this originally 2d6 plus 1d6 fire sword turned into a 12d20 times his strength mod. Add in his dexterity mod too if he decides to throw it. Also, because he's the greatest character to ever live, simply holding his weapon one-handed, despite it being a greatsword, causes the damage to be multiplied by 1.5. 3 times damage if he holds it with both hands. This means that the absolute minimum damage that he can deal with this sword is a staggering 9,846 to a maximum of 779,760 if he decides to throw it. That means at minimum, Wolf had enough strength to kill a Tarask nearly 11.5 times. Let's do a damage calculation test again, but this time adding in his rage level 5. His minimum damage now scales up to 78,768 with a maximum damage of 6,294,240 in a single hit. I know that as you get strong enough in tabletop games, some challenges just become trivial, but this is a bit overboard. How would his arm be able to withstand such a powerful impact? His weakest hit would be enough to turn himself into paste. But we're still expected to believe this is a completely legit character. As you can imagine, we can't stop Wolf from going crazy and killing everyone, and he literally murders our entire party. None of us could prepare to put him to sleep, and absolutely no one could touch his ungodly 34,288 AC. It is here that we are introduced to another character my brother made, one to be a foil to my character Gilgamesh. that I made in a different campaign. More on that one later. This was Relic, a clown god of chaos. Think of the Joker, but wildly less original. He appears and resurrects us all, under the rule that we must now blindly follow him. My brother literally comes around the table and makes sure we all change our characters' gods to Relic before returning to the table. This is just irritating. Let's continue. Our third encounter with Wolf involved another fight against him, but this time Zav was there, because I guess he had to be. Before the battle began, Zav had us drink a potion of Wolf Strength, which honestly just sounds so self-glorifying, but whatever. When we drink it, we are more or less made to be about as strong as Wolf was in his base form. With potions drank and Zav assisting us, the battle began. The fight wasn't anything to write home about. My brother made it seem as though Wolf was merely toying with us, with the exception of Zav. It boiled down to each of us taking turns attacking him with melee attacks, while he cleaved us all down at once. It meant that our counters would be useless if they tried to use magic, which takes away from player identity, and just turns everyone into beat sticks, which doesn't really make it fun either, especially considering the fight wasn't all too engaging. I was beginning to see that my brother wanted Wolf to be the main character, so you could say, for the sake of the campaign, and it all came to a head when I picked a few feats that gave Carl an edge in battle. It was a bit min-maxing on my part, but considering how difficult it was to land hits on enemies in my brother's previous campaign, I wasn't taking any chances. I took feats in Expanded Critical, Precise Strike, and Critical Momentum. This allowed me to add my Intelligence and Dexterity bonuses to my critical range, and every time I would land a critical, I would get an extra attack. With all my bonuses, my crit range was 13 to 20. Since crits amounted to automatically hitting an enemy, this made Carl the best in the party for dealing with enemies with high AC values, including Wolf. But it wasn't Wolf that ultimately did Carl in. My brother devised a trap for us involving 10 plus stone golems. When Carl's turn came, I immediately rushed down and attacked with an onslaught of critical strikes. Carl wasn't the strongest in our party, but combined with his critical momentum and high crit chance, it made him a monster in groups of enemies. I got about 7 hits in and downed 2 of the golems before my brother forced my turn to end and skipped the initiatives of my party for the sake of retaliation. He said that they were angry to see their brethren fall, which is the reason for their immediate action. Without even rolling the dice, he says that they all attacked Carl at once and dealt 215 damage. While Carl did have high AC, he did not have a ton of health. So this not only knocked Carl unconscious, but it also immediately caused him to die and fail all of his death saves. Stunned that he would resort to that, I got up and walked out. The only way I could continue to play would be to create a brand new character, which I just wasn't on board with. Angry and frustrated with my brother, I walked away when my friend came out behind me, the one who was my previous DM and was taking a break to play with us. He told me after I had left that Zoth appeared and did some crazy potion magic to bring Carl back, which just made me blow up even more. My brother came out to watch the fireworks as I let all of my frustration out. No rolls, no damage calculation, just immediate and unstoppable death. Play too good? Death. That is what's waiting for everyone in there. And Zoth? Fucking Zoth? Of course he would find a way to reverse death, because Lord forbid there be any real sort of consequences in the world that you've created. He's got his head shoved so far up his ass that he couldn't see that this campaign sucks harder than his girlfriend does. Like, Jesus bro, why even play? Playing the game is discouraged because your own damn characters are just solo every single thing themselves. Just play by yourself then. I didn't take him up on the Zav revival BS he was trying to spout, and didn't return to the campaign, because if I made another character, and that character did well, he'd just die the same way. I didn't want any part of this campaign anymore. It would be an even longer time before I came back to the table for another game, and it seemed my brother at least partially listened to what I had to say about his busted characters. As in this new campaign, though Zav and Wolf ended up returning, they were relegated to being something like merchants. Zav made magical trinkets and potions, while Wolf made weapons and armor. And finally, we were done with these awful, overpowered allies and enemies my brother had forced onto us. Or so I thought. In my next D&D story, I'll go over what I consider to be the worst DM NPC my brother's ever created. Blaine. Remember in the previous video that Wolf Sword. Remember in